I just wanted to say that what I learned in my PhD, which is quite a while ago, and it hasn't been published yet, is that there are three types of ideas that you can have in architecture, some which have no bearing on design, some which inform the design, and then there are the stylistic issues which tell you exactly what something's going to look like. These are ideas that underpin the modernist studio jargon and dialogue, but they're all from the 19th century. The most recent modernist idea is from 1865, form follows function. 1864 maybe, I don't know. In the traditional architecture, and much of it you see here around this building in this part of town or in all of Oslo, there's this fantastic dialogue going on with all of these romantic ideas, and that is actually where we need to continue the dialogue, pick up where we left off, and I think that's going to be what I'm going to be focusing on later this year and next year. When I returned to practice, I started doing classical, traditional stuff, but I always sought the science. There had to be a reason. My mother was a biologist, my father was an engineer. I needed to find the scientific reason for whatever it was that I was proposing to others. If it didn't have a solid basis, I didn't feel that I could. And when it came to answering the question, why does this classical method work? I don't have available to me nostalgia. I don't have available to me any belief system. I don't have available to me some mythology. So I found the notion of how it affects the experience via the brain processing perception. And I at first discovered neuroaesthetics and the work of Richard Taylor and others, which goes back to the 80s prior to fractal analysis, and then fractal analysis, which started explaining the process. This is essential. It doesn't mean that you don't need the orders. On the contrary, it explains why they work. And it gives you, as a designer, the freedom to use them in completely new ways within the classical discourse. Even more recently, I designed the extension of Grand Central Terminal back in 2001. It was just opened last December. Wayfinding, how do you find your way through a train station or an airport, which I also designed, when you don't have any cues from the architecture. So I installed in the architecture some cues for Grand Central, but then this wayfinding business came up with other research we were doing in the Classic Planning Institute and laboratory. Kate Jeffries, she's into the memory thing. And memory and place are very connected. Then I discovered, I don't remember when, in the last 6-9 months, that hands are half the brain. They occupy half the brain. So this perception neuroscience covers the stable environment business. And then you ask, well, what about the mobile environment? And it occurred to me, I always go back to sitting at the mouth of our cave in Serengeti 50,000 years ago, looking out at the environment, because that's our natural state. And what do we see? So we have the stable environment. If a rock is moving, you're in trouble. If a tree is moving, you're in big trouble. But you have stuff that does move, people and animals, and you're for sure in trouble, because you don't until you identify what they are. So this identification happens very, very quickly in the brain. And the odd thing is that people and faces are identified in the same 80 milliseconds as buildings are. But modernist buildings are not identified. Modernist structures are not identified as buildings. So then the question is, what is a building? What makes a building recognizable? I don't think I need to answer that. What came up for me was, what do the eyes actually see? And I'm surrounded by young people, grandchildren, and so on. And I watch them looking at the world, and we thought at first that they're just vacuous looking. No, they are calibrating their brains to what they see and what people are telling them they see, because this is what they see, aside from color. It's just edges. That's what the eyes do. The rest is processed in the brain. Fast forward, I don't know how many millions of years of evolution, the first neuroscience experiment was based on the idea of truth, goodness, and beauty being a unity. Who here has heard of truth, goodness, and beauty as something? It's an essential. I might get to that later, but here's the first experiment. Here are folks who understood that they are a unity, and they said, well, what will happen if we'll design the absolutely prettiest thing we possibly can? There's not a single straight line in that structure. It's entirely designed to accommodate the conical lens of the human eye. And it was the beginning of what we can call canonization. It's a terrible word for what's really going on. It's more of an understanding, a level of understanding that enables you to move away from it to your own creation in this dialogue.